You have come to this place not merely to hear, but to remember. What I will speak to you now is not new knowledge. It is ancient, primordial. It stirs in the marrow of your bones and flickers behind the veil of your daily persona. I am not here to teach you. I am here to awaken what has always been within you. You may have called it sensitivity, compassion, the ache you cannot name, the desire to ease the suffering of others. Even when your own soul burns with unspoken pain, but underneath these names is something deeper, something sacred and perilous. There is an archetype within you, the empath. And do not misunderstand, this is not a gift bestowed lightly. It is a double-edged inheritance. For the one who feels deeply must, at some point, confront the truth that what they feel is not always their own. And herein lies the shadow. To be an empath is to walk the line between heaven and the abyss. You sense the unspoken, absorb the unshed tears of others, and often lose the boundary between self and other. But let me ask you, who taught you to do this? Who trained your soul to lean forward, to adapt, to please, to absorb, to suffer, so that the world might remain comfortable around you? It began early, as it often does, in the psychic cradle of childhood, where the empath is not born, but forged. Perhaps a parent's rage filled the room like smoke, and you, like a silent alchemist, turned it into peace. Or perhaps the wound was more subtle, a coldness, a disapproval, a withholding of affection that whispered, "You must become what I want, or I will withdraw love." And so you became pleasing, adaptable, the invisible balm to other people's unhealed wounds. And this was mistaken for love, but what was actually happening was a betrayal, not by others, but by your own psyche in its desperate attempt to survive. The child within you made a pact. It said, "If I can keep everyone happy, they will not abandon me. If I can feel what they feel, maybe I can control it. Maybe I will be safe." This is the wound that masquerades as empathy, and until it is brought into consciousness, it will dominate your destiny. Let us pause and look at this not through the lens of sentiment, but through the symbolic realm of the psyche. The empath is not merely a kind person. The empath is an archetypal mirror, a reflective pool that shows others what they cannot see in themselves. You become the moon to their hidden sun, the subconscious mirror in which their repressed aspects emerge. But mirrors do not choose what they reflect. They simply reveal, and when the empath pleases, when they overfunction, when they self-sacrifice in the name of harmony, they become complicit in great deception. They maintain the illusion. They prop up the masks others wear, believing that love is earned through dissolution of the self. But my dear listener, what happens when the mirror stops reflecting? What happens when the empath awakens and says, "No more"? When the soul, long crushed under the burden of false responsibility, rises like a tide, reclaiming the sacred boundary between self and other, I will tell you, the masks fall, and the terror begins not for you, but for those who benefited from your compliance. You must understand this. Your pleasing was a psychic contract, a silent agreement that said, I will shrink so you can remain large. I will feel so you don't have to. I will carry the tension so you can wear your mask. When you stop fulfilling that contract, the other person is confronted with the weight of their own unlived life, and very few are ready to face it. This is why the empath, upon setting boundaries, is often met with confusion, hostility, or sudden abandonment, not because they have done harm, but because they have disrupted the psychic equilibrium of the relationship. You have removed your role from their inner play, and without it, their mask begins to slip. It is not you. They are angry at it. It's the terror of facing themselves. The unconscious does not take kindly to awakening. It resists, rebels, punishes. For in the unconscious lives the shadow, the dark, rejected aspects of the self. The empath has long absorbed this shadow for others, carrying it in silence. But when the empath returns, the projection, when they say, this is not mine to hold, the repressed begins to stir, and this is where your real initiation begins. The moment you stop pleasing is not a moment of cruelty, it is a sacred rupture, a psychic exorcism. The mask, the persona, begins to crack, not just theirs, but yours, because let us not pretend that the empath is innocent in this dance. You too wore a mask, the mask of the helper, the savior, the peacemaker, and while it may have seemed noble, it served your own unconscious need, the need to be loved, to be accepted, to feel in control. But that mask, too, must fall. You see, individuation, the sacred journey of becoming oneself, requires the death of all false identities. And that includes the identity of the empath as martyr. You are not here to carry the pain of the world. You are here to transform it through the fire of your own awakening. Do not fear the falling of masks. It is painful, yes, but it is holy. For only when the false self crumbles can the true self begin to emerge, and the self, the self is not soft and sacrificial. The self is a sovereign flame. It does not absorb the world. It illuminates it. And in your illumination, others will be forced to see. Some will recoil, some will rage, some will leave. Let them. You are not their mirror anymore. You are their reckoning, and yet you must not become hardened. This is the danger, the pendulum swing. The empath who awakens may be tempted to build walls, to reject all vulnerability, to see compassion as weakness, but this is merely another mask, the mask of the wounded warrior. True individuation integrates both the open heart and the boundaried soul. You must feel, yes, but not to the point of self-erasure. You must care, but without collapsing. You must see, but from your own rooted center, not through borrowed eyes. The unconscious is not your enemy. It is your inheritance, and every person who reacts to your awakening is offering you a gift, a chance to see where your old wound still lives. Do not curse them. Thank them. They are the final test before your rebirth. Let me offer you a dream. A woman stands in a room filled with mirrors. Each mirror shows a different version of her. Some smiling, some weeping, some raging. She walks from one to the next, searching for the one that feels true, but none satisfy her. Finally, in a moment of despair, she smashes them all. Shards of glass fall like rain, and in the silence that follows, she looks down and sees her reflection in the pool of her own blood. It is then that she weeps, not from pain, but from recognition. She has found herself at last. That woman is you. The mirrors are the roles you have played. The blood is the price of awakening, and the reflection, that is yourself raw, unmasked and sovereign. The world may not understand you now. That is not your concern. Your task is not to be understood, but to be whole. And wholeness requires sacrifice, not of self, but of illusion. You will feel alone at first. That is the void between masks and essence. But if you stay with it, if you let the silence speak, you will find something far greater than acceptance. You will find meaning, and meaning, my dear listener, is the medicine. Now breathe. You are not broken. You are breaking through. You are not too much. You are finally enough for yourself, and you are not lost. You are returning. There is a peculiar silence that descends upon the soul when it begins to shed its compulsions. Not the quiet of peace, but the stillness before a storm, a sacred tension. When you, the empath, stop pleasing, the psyche enters this still point. It is a void between identity and essence, between who you were taught to be and who you truly are. Many cannot bear this silence. They will run, they will reach for new distractions, for louder voices, for another role to play. But you must resist the temptation to fill it, for in this silence, the unconscious stirs. You must understand, the psyche is not linear. It is symbolic, cyclical, recursive. The moment you withdraw your energy from others, the unclaimed parts of yourself begin to emerge. These parts, the abandoned child, the silenced anger, the shamed desire, have been waiting in the shadows of your soul for decades. They do not arrive with words. They arrive with dreams, images, synchronicities. You may find yourself dreaming of wolves with human eyes, or staircases that lead nowhere, or houses that collapse as soon as you enter. Do not dismiss these dreams. They are your soul's poetry. A woman once told me she dreamt she was serving tea in a house with no walls. Wind blew from all directions, scattering everything she touched. She wept in the dream, unable to contain anything. When she awoke, she felt shame for not being strong, for not being enough. But I told her, the house with no walls is your psyche without boundaries. The wind is the emotion of others, constantly entering. And the tea, it is your essence, your energy, offered to all, but never held for yourself. You see, the unconscious does not lie. It paints in metaphor, in riddle, and your dreams will begin to change when your mask starts to slip. No longer will you dream of fixing, pleasing, saving. You will dream of confrontation, of floods, of rebirth, because that is what is happening. You are being reborn, not as a construct, but as an integrated soul. But rebirth is violent to the ego. The ego will scream, it will panic, it will say, if you do not please, you will be alone. If you do not adapt, you will be rejected. If you do not give, you are nothing. And these voices will feel real. They may even come with the faces of people you loved, but they are not the truth. They are the psychic residue of old contracts, formed in pain and sealed in fear. This is the moment you must enter the underworld. Yes, I said underworld. For psychological transformation is not a walk through the garden. It is a descent. You must go down into yourself, into the places you once avoided, into the caves where your unmet needs live, into the prisons where you locked away your anger, your hunger, your longing to be seen not as useful but as sacred. Many empaths fear their anger. They say, it is not spiritual, it is not kind, but let me be clear. Suppressed anger is the guardian of your boundaries. It is the voice of the soul saying, this is not okay. When you ignore it, it does not vanish. It turns inward. It becomes depression, fatigue, a chronic ache in the chest. You call it anxiety, but it is unlived truth. And this unlived truth is your path to liberation. You must meet your rage, not act on it, but honor it, sit with it, ask it what it needs. You will discover that underneath the fire is grief, and underneath the grief is a child, and the child does not want revenge. The child wants safety, wants to be held, wants to be believed. When you stop pleasing others, this child will rise up in you. She will ask, are we allowed to exist now? Are we allowed to take up space? And you must answer, yes, even if no one claps, even if no one stays. Yes, this is how the self is born. The self is not the opposite of the ego. It is the wholeness that contains the ego, the shadow, the unconscious, and the divine. It is your original face before the mask, before the role. And you cannot arrive at the self without first losing everything you used to be. There will be days when you miss the mask, when you wish you could return to the safety of the pleasing self, when you will look at those who still perform, still adapt, and wonder if you've made a mistake. But remember, the mask may gain you love, but only the truth will give you freedom. And freedom is not without cost. When the empath awakens, they often find that old relationships no longer fit. Friends who once called every day now go silent. Family members who praised your kindness now accuse you of being distant. Romantic partners who leaned on your emotional labor now find you too much. This is not failure. This is friction. The gears of your life are recalibrating. Let them turn, let them grind. There will be a day not far from now when you will walk into a room and no longer scan it for who needs you. You will not shrink. You will not extend yourself into the psychic field of another, trying to soothe or fix. You will simply be fully, powerfully. And in that moment, you will realize something profound, that your presence was never meant to be a balm. It was meant to be a bell-ringing truth into the hearts of the asleep. You are not here to rescue others. You are here to embody the self, and in doing so, you invite others to do the same. This is the secret terror of the world, that when empaths stop pleasing, the system collapses. The illusion fractures because the empath was the glue, the silent keeper of balance, the unspoken giver, the soul mule. When you step back, others are forced to carry what they once projected, and many will not know how they will flail, they will blame, they will lash out. But this too is sacred, because it is only in their discomfort that they will begin to grow. Do not rescue them from this discomfort. That is the old self. Let the discomfort be their teacher, just as pain has been yours. Trust the alchemy of the soul. I once spoke with a man who said, if I stop fixing everyone, who am I? And I said, finally, someone worthy of being loved. He did not understand. Most do not, because when your identity is built upon usefulness, the idea of being loved for nothing feels impossible. But it is not. In fact, it is the truest love, to be seen, not for what you provide, but for who you are. When you provide nothing, when you sit in your center, not extending, not bending, not absorbing, and someone still draws near, not to take, but to know you have found something rare. Do not fear losing those who cannot love you without your mask. Fear staying so small that you never find the ones who can. The final warning is this: when you stop pleasing, the real ones remain, but you will only meet them when you become real yourself. And becoming real is a sacred fire. It will burn the false self. It will strip the titles, the roles, the polite smile, the accommodating tone. It will burn through the psychic contracts, the ancestral expectations, the trauma scripts. It will not spare what is untrue, but what survives the fire that is eternal. You are approaching this fire now. I can feel it. And you are afraid. That is good. It means you are close, but walk forward anyway. Let the flames take what no longer serves. Let the smoke rise from every should and must and ought to that kept you hidden. And then stand in the ash, stand naked, raw, uncertain, and watch what grows. There is a sacred paradox at the heart of the empath's journey. You who once felt everything now must learn the art of not feeling what is not yours. And this is not a hardening of the heart, it is a refining of the soul. To withdraw from the compulsion to please is to invite chaos into the symbolic order of your life. But do not mistake chaos for failure. Chaos is the precondition for all genuine transformation. You must understand, individuation is not a path of linear ascent. It is a spiral, and every spiral descends before it rises. When you stop pleasing, you descend into yourself. You enter what the alchemists called the nigredo, the blackening. It is the phase where all known structures collapse, where light dims, and all your neatly organized psychic drawers spill into the dark. Many turn back here. They run to another persona, another identity, another performance. But if you stay, if you sit within the black soil of your unknowing, something remarkable begins to occur. Your roots grow. They go downward into the unconscious, into the symbolic womb of the mother, into the archetypal soil from which all genuine being arises. Only there, in that primal dark, do you discover the source of your true self, not the self that was shaped by the demands of others, but the self that has been whispering to you in dreams, in longings, in those moments when you stood at the edge of a decision and felt the soul say, "No more, it is not your task to go on carrying what others have disowned. It is your task to become whole." And wholeness is not perfection. Wholeness includes the wound, the rage, the shame, the memory of betrayal. All of it must be gathered like scattered children and brought to the center. For what you do not bring into the light of your consciousness, you will meet again outside, in the world, in the face of a lover who cannot see you, in the eyes of a friend who always takes, in the voice of your own exhaustion that says, "I can't do this anymore." Do not silence that voice. That voice is the call, and when you finally answer it not with words, but with choices, you begin to shatter the mirror. Not all at once. No, the psyche is more merciful than that. It gives you time, one piece at a time. You remove what no longer reflects the truth, and what remains is your essence, not the image you crafted to survive, but the core that was always waiting to be chosen. You see, the empath has long used sensitivity as a defense, believing that to feel everything is to be safe from conflict. But this is a lie of the child self. Feeling is not a shield, it is a door, and doors can be closed. You are allowed to close a door. You are allowed to say, "This is not mine. This energy, this chaos, this need, it is not mine to carry." And when you do, you are not being selfish. You are being sovereign. Sovereignty, a word most empaths have never tasted. It is the state of being whole unto yourself, no longer dependent on the moods or perceptions of others for validation. It is a return of your psychic authority, the reclamation of your own energy from the web of unconscious roles and obligations. It is standing in the world not as a sponge, but as a tuning fork resonating only with what is true, and what is true does not require your suffering. This is the revelation that shakes the empath's foundation. You do not need to suffer in order to love. You do not need to overextend, overgive, over-explain. Love, in its mature form, does not demand self-erasure. It honors boundaries. It welcomes no, as much as it cherishes yes. And this kind of love, real, anchored, aware, can only find you when you stop performing the role of the one who is always there for others. And begin showing up for yourself. And that, my dear listener, is when the most dangerous mask of all begins to slip, the mask of the good one. Yes, even goodness can be a mask, especially when it is compulsive, unconscious, reflexive. When you are good because you are afraid of being alone, of being rejected, of being unloved, then your goodness is not virtue. It is adaptation, and what is adapted is not yet free. So now I ask you, not your persona, not your wounds, but you, the self beneath all masks. Can you bear to be misunderstood? Can you bear to be seen as not nice, as difficult, as too much, or too little, or selfish? Because until you can, you are still dancing for approval. And the soul does not dance for crumbs. To become whole, you must risk being unlikable. You must risk disappointing the very people who have come to depend on your self-abandonment. You must risk being alone in a room that once needed you, because only then can you discover who you are, when no one is pulling on your empathy like a puppet string. And what you will find in that still and sacred place is not coldness, but clarity. Clarity about what is yours to hold, and what is not, about what nurtures you, and what drains, about who sees you and who only sees what you can do for them. This clarity is the beginning of psychic freedom, and it comes not from detachment, but from embodiment. To be embodied is to return to your inner authority, to say with your posture, your breath, your silence, I am here, I am whole, I no longer need to disappear in order to belong. And when you carry that authority quiet, unshakable, alive, you will begin to notice something extraordinary. The world will shift around you, not dramatically at first, but subtly, like a tide that changes its pull. Certain people will fall away, not because you pushed them, but because your presence now demands truth. Others will draw near, not with needs to be filled, but with mutual recognition. These are your people, not your audience, not your dependent, your people. You will know them not by how much they need you, but by how much they see you. And this seeing is sacred. It does not idolize your kindness. It respects your wholeness. It does not feed on your light. It mirrors it. You may wonder, why now? Why does this message feel so urgent? Because the time has come. The collective mask is thinning. The world is being stripped of its illusions, and the empath, the intuitive, the feeler, the seer has a choice: either continue propping up the false structures, or become the channel through which a new consciousness emerges. But you cannot channel what you do not embody. You cannot speak truth while living a lie. So this is your invitation, not to abandon your empathy, but to refine it, to burn away the martyrdom, the guilt, the compulsion to keep the gift, but discard the servitude, to say, I will feel deeply, but I will not be ruled by what I feel. I will care, but I will not collapse. I will love, but I will no longer abandon myself in the name of connection. This is not a concept, it is a practice, and it will be tested daily in the smallest of ways. A message you do not answer, a conversation you choose to leave, a dinner you do not attend, a truth you finally speak, and in each of these moments you reclaim a piece of yourself. You may grieve. Of course you will. You are burying an identity, a mask that kept you safe, a pattern that made sense of chaos. Let the grief move through you. Let it soak the earth. That is how the roots grow deeper still and do not rush the bloom. The new self comes slowly, like dawn. First a hint, then a glow, then a rising that cannot be stopped. And when it rises, you will know, not because the world applauds, But because the mirror no longer frightens you, you will stand before it, naked and whole, and say, "Ah, there I am, at last." There is a silence that arrives after the fire, after the mirror has shattered and the mask lies in fragments at your feet. But this silence is not the silence of emptiness, it is the silence of truth, revealed at last. The empath, now unbound from the compulsions of performance and projection, stands before the world not as a servant of its chaos, but as a sovereign flame within it. And now that you have crossed the threshold, you must become intimate with your own depth, not the depth you once offered others while ignoring yourself, not the insight you once wielded like a lantern to guide everyone else while you walked in darkness, but your depth. You're in the cosmos, that strange, vast, magnificent realm that pulses beneath the surface of your personality, where archetypes stir, where ancestral memories breathe, where dreams are born and symbols speak in tongues more ancient than language. You have journeyed long through the outer world, fulfilling roles, managing perceptions, stitching together fractured relationships, mediating storms that were never yours to calm. And now you are being asked to reverse the gaze, to turn inward, to descend not into others, but into your own unconscious, into the holy terrain where your soul waits unresqued. It is here, in this uncharted kingdom of inner life, that you begin the real work, not of saving, but of integrating, not of pleasing, but of becoming. Let the outer world call you selfish. Let it whisper that you've changed. Yes, you are no longer available for exploitation dressed as obligation. You are no longer available to be the emotional reservoir for the unprocessed wounds of others. You have work to do, soul work, ancestral work, symbolic work. And this work cannot be done while playing small to soothe those who fear your fullness. So now you must become a practitioner of inner listening. There will be dreams now, different dreams, not of chaos or abandonment, but of symbols, animals, storms, staircases, strangers with familiar eyes. They are the language of the self, calling you home. Pay attention, not with analysis alone, but with reverence. The dream is not a puzzle to solve, but a temple to enter. It does not ask for interpretation. It asks for participation. You may dream of a lion with your father's voice, a staircase that leads to a locked room, a river that speaks in your mother's tone. These are not accidents. They are constellations of memory, emotion. And archetype, the lion may be your inner authority. The staircase, your repressed longing. The river, your mother's unlived sadness. Everything is alive. Everything is a message. And as you begin to listen, to track these inner voices, you begin to recognize the great paradox that by ceasing to please others, you become pleasing to the deepest part of yourself. You begin to trust yourself, not just your thoughts, but your body, your intuition, your energetic boundaries. You begin to sense when something is misaligned without needing to explain why. You begin to say no with the same grace you once reserved for your yes. This is psychic maturity. It does not come with applause. It comes with space, space between stimulus and response, space to feel without absorbing, space to speak without apologizing, space to be without shrinking, and in that space, something extraordinary begins to happen. You begin to attract resonance, not obligation, not demand, but resonance. People who meet you where you are, people who do not need your distortion to feel comfortable, people who have also entered their own underworlds and emerged not with demands, but with depth. This is soul recognition, not the drama of karmic loops, but the calm knowing of mutual wholeness. But be warned, before you meet resonance, you will be tested by the familiar, the universe, or perhaps more accurately, your own unconscious will send you echoes of your old pattern, wrapped in new costumes, a new partner who mirrors the emotional vacuum of the parent you tried to save, a new friend who subtly demands your emotional labor, a new spiritual teacher who flatters your intuition while exploiting your need to feel seen. These are not punishments. They are mirrors, not of your failure, but of your growth. You must ask yourself in these moments, who am I being tempted to become? If the answer is the old self, the pleasing one, the overgiver, the emotional contortionist, then, this is not alignment, it is repetition. And you are no longer here to repeat. You are here to create the self, to create boundaries that hold without harm, to create relationships that feed without fusing, to create art, choices, language that speak not from the wound, but from the wisdom that comes only after you stop making yourself small for the comfort of others. This is the deeper meaning of spiritual authority, not control, but coherence, not power over others, but the power to remain yourself in any room, in any silence, in any storm. You are no longer the empath as sponge. You are becoming the empath as tuning fork. You no longer collapse into others' pain. You allow their pain to find its own shape, its own lesson. You hold space without entering the fire. You witness without dissolving. You speak truth even when your voice shakes. And in doing so, you liberate others. Yes, that is the irony. When you stop pleasing, you give others permission to awaken. It may not feel like that at first. Many will resist, many will project, many will try to pull you back into the dance you've outgrown. But some, perhaps only a few at first, will see your new boundary not as rejection, but as revelation. They will begin to ask themselves the questions you dare to ask. Who am I when I'm not needed? What am I hiding behind my caretaking? Why do I feel threatened when someone claims their own space? You, dear empath, are not just healing yourself. You are breaking a lineage. You are ending a pattern passed down through generations, especially through the feminine psyche that equates love with sacrifice, a goodness with silence, connection with self-abandonment. You are becoming a threshold, a portal through which a new kind of being emerges, one that loves without losing self, one that serves without shrinking, one that feels deeply without absorbing blindly. And so I leave you here not at the end, But at the beginning of your inner life, you no longer owe the world your pleasing. What you owe is your presence. You no longer owe the world your suffering. What you owe is your sovereignty. You no longer owe the world your silence. What you owe is yourself. And now, I invite you not to memorize any of this, not to turn it into doctrine or theory, but to descend into your own depths and discover what these words awaken in you. For the truest transformation is not in hearing, but in living. Begin with the silence. Find a moment each day where you are not useful, not performing, not adapting. Sit there, breathe, listen, not with your ears, but with your inner ear, the one that hears dreams, that catches archetypes in flight, that knows the difference between love and obligation. What do you notice? What do you feel? What ancient part of you begins to stir? Write what you hear, not for others, but for your own remembering. Let the unconscious know you already know. You are no longer available for false roles. You are no longer a refuge for projections. You are no longer a mask. You are the mirror turned inward. And within you, the truth waits not to be understood, but to be embodied. Walk with that truth. Let it change how you choose, how you love, how you breathe. Let it disturb the familiar. Let it disappoint the expectations you once built your life around. And then, one quiet morning, without fanfare or fear, you will realize you are free.